Hello, this is the PDSA assignment, and our topic is school discipline and out-of-classroom referrals. And in this group, you have Yvette Casas, Bob Ezer, and Michael Rooks. We're looking at the problem of out-of-classroom referrals by teachers without classroom interventions being put in place, first of all. And we're looking at how we can address the high referral rate of students being sent out of the classroom in the school that we have chosen for our case study. And the action steps we took, first of all, was to do students-teacher survey so that we can understand and know how to reduce the out-of-classroom referrals for 9th grade students in the classroom. This action survey, these are the questions of the action survey. We ask both students and teachers so we can understand the problem effectively, knowing what causes this out-of-classroom referrals before we can know how to address it. And this is the outcome of that referral in the fishbone chart that we took out of class for the causal effects of the teacher survey. We are looking at academic engagement, administration, classroom management, students wanting to socialize in the classroom, student-teacher relationships, and classroom instructions as part of those things that cause out to out-of-classroom referrals. And this is the data that came out of the research we did. The classroom management, while is on top, while student-teacher relationship is at the bottom of the rung. So we took the data we created, we collected, and put into the Pareto chart so that we can find out what was 80% of the problems that could be addressed by 20% of the issue. 80% of the issue that could be addressed by 20% of the problems rule, which is part of what the Pareto chart helps us to solve. We found out that the two major issues here is the classroom management and students wanting to socialize in the classroom. And we decided to deal with classroom management being the most effective one first before we can begin to think of the socialization aspect. Now, to proceed, we needed to find out what research says about the reasons why students get sent out of the classroom. And we found out that there are three major issues that cause students to be sent out of the classroom: racialized referrals, student behavior, and student and teacher relationships. That these are the three major issues that create students that cause students to be sent out of the classrooms. Now, in dealing with this, we created the process map, which we believed, if implemented, would drastically reduce the incidence of out-of-classroom referrals. And we kind of found out that both teachers and students did not effectively follow or understand that effective classroom rules and the procedure would help. So the first thing we did was students and teachers being able to understand and agree on what the classroom rules and procedure is. If the ones that is done and it is effectively implemented, then there is no need for out-of-classroom referrals. If it does not happen and the student keeps breaking the rules, the teacher is required to implement some interventions in the classroom, being a tier 1 problem at this stage. If the tier 1 problem intervention is effective, then there is no need for out-of-classroom referrals. If the tier 1 intervention fails, then it becomes tier 2. At this stage, the teacher is free now to refer the student out of classroom for effective addressing of this problem out of the classroom.
So our aim became 9th grade teachers will reduce out-of-class referrals from 3 referrals a week to 1 referral a week by December 2023. Our primary driver was teachers have clear criteria that qualifies sending a student out of class. Our secondary driver was professional development, and our change became weekly check-ins where 3 selected teachers would demonstrate 3 targeted interventions with set students. Our theory of change was if we want to decrease the number of out-of-classroom referrals, then we need to target teacher professional development by collecting better information about their interventions. One way to do that is to include a conversation in our weekly check-ins where the teacher will identify and discuss 3 targeted interventions for a particular student prior to a written documented referral. Our theory of change was we presented at a professional development where we highlighted multiple interventions that should be exhausted prior to an out-of-class referral. These interventions included any and all verbal warnings, during class time and any reteaching of expectations. Also, a mandatory conference with the student, highlighting rules and expectations that the student's having trouble with, issuing lunchtime or after school reflections, or also known as detention, notifying the student's counselor so that counselor could then pull the student in and have a student conference with them. And then also a phone call home as well in order to get parents involved. What we did was we counted the number of referrals weekly and documented them here on this chart. We noticed a spike, though, however, during the week of 11/13 to 11/17. So for our theory of change, we felt the need to explain the increased number of referrals. Well, there were 3 weeks of implementation. A conversation was had in our weekly check-ins where the teacher identified or discussed 3 targeted interventions for a particular student with me prior to the documented referral. The number of referrals increased due to an anomaly. The week of 11/13 to 11/17, there was a large fight between 2 groups of girls that occurred outside of the classroom. As the dean, I had to write that up. All the girls that were involved received a referral, but the number was still added to the weekly referrals. Also, we felt the need to mention that the week of 11/20 to 11/24, that was Thanksgiving break, so there were no referrals that week. And then the last week, of the 5 referrals written that week, 3 of them were out of classroom fights that were written by myself and not in classroom teachers. Reflecting on our case study, we kind of noticed that teachers felt more supported working more closely with the Dean of Discipline. Teachers had a better idea of how to utilize different interventions. Teachers also felt more supported being able to bring counselors into the fold and discuss the problems they were having as well. Teachers felt more confident in documenting the interventions that they use with students. And another finding was that we really didn't feel that 3 weeks was enough time to see how effective our theory of change would ultimately be.
So most times people tend to deal with issues, systemic issues as individual problems. And we realized that this was not an individual problem, it was a systemic issue. And if the problem is systemic, it can only be solved not by individuals alone. We can only solve them by plugging the systemic problem that we have identified. In this case, the fact that teachers were not implementing interventions before sending students out of the classroom. Now, improvement in the system is also capable of being translated into future leadership tools as improved policy. Now, the whole goal was to create a positive policy that administrators could use, not just now, but in future, to improve the incidence of sending students out of the classroom, reduce it drastically to the point where it becomes quite insignificant. Now, the project required implementation tools that address teachers, students, admin, as a community, school community. And the whole goal was to create an improved classroom and classroom management. And then we followed the PDSA plan, the Plan, Do, Act, Study Act. We looked at the issue, we planned what are we supposed to do to improve this. What we did was we took data, and after the data, we implemented the professional development, and we studied and found out what is our next steps to do, and then we acted on that. So at the end of the day, we followed the PDSA procedure in arriving at the outcomes we have here. And we do believe that these outcomes are positive because improvement tools in education can and should be connected to socially just and inclusive education in many ways. Now, one of the ways it does this is it creates equity and access. It identifies and addresses specific needs of diverse learners in this situation, out of classroom referrals in all and every situation that it is not necessary for teachers to do so. And the second one is a collaborative professional development where teachers and staff and administration and management were able to come together and share ideas and share best practices, reflecting on what is being done and what could be the better practice to address this issue so that it could be created, these policies could be created in a more inclusive environment. Again, the community engagement, the school partnership in process, inclusive decision-making is an effective one, which made sure that everyone had a buy-in into the process so that everybody felt that this is our process, not just the administration's process, but the entire school's process. And then the policy improvement, the data analysis used to identify and address these systemic issues could lead, or is desired to lead, to effective diversity, addressing the issues of, as we said, racism as part of the factors that affects out of classroom referrals. It also addresses the issue of student behavior, which the student teachers were not able to make decision between tier 1 behavior and tier 2 behavior before sending students out of the classroom, and also the fact that teachers didn't have effective relationship with the students. And then these issues affected the equity need of students to remain in the classroom and learn effectively. And then the whole idea is that we are going to create an inclusion-based policy that would address this problem from everyone's community point of view, involving the entire school community. Thank you.